I was wandering the streets of Portland crying with all of my comrades who were also crying. And I got this phone call from our caseworker who said, "There's a baby at the hospital. Do you want to go cuddle this baby?"
Oh
And I
my
was
God.
like, "That's the only thing I want to do." And so we entered into this really weird time where it was like the world is ending and our dreams are coming true at the exact same time.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy. I am one of your hosts, Keely C. Helmick.
And I'm your other host, Melissa DeSegurant.
We have an interview today. Super excited for Gina and Ray to be here. Melissa, would you like to do the honors to introduce yourself first, and then we can have our guests introduce themselves?
Sure. So I'm Melissa. I am white, bisexual, polyamorous, able-bodied, gender fluid, and a licensed marriage and family therapist and professional counselor at Connective Therapy Collective.
I am Keely C. Helmick. I am a queer sex therapist, owner of Connective Therapy Collective, non-binary, single, solo, currently non-monogamously dating, white, able-bodied, and super excited for our guests today. So you all, would you like to introduce yourselves and however format works best for you?
Sure. You want me to go first?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm Gina Senerigi. I am also a couples therapist. I now work as an intimacy coach, mostly online, and I'm a podcaster and a writer. I am partnered to Ray and parent of two, we are both parents of two preschoolers. So we have a very loud household. We share a tiny dog and a big garden. I'm a big gardener and a witch. I am white. We are living on the land of the Miami, Potawatomi, and Kickapoo tribes, but a lot of people call it Madison, Wisconsin. But we've lived here for 2 years, just during the pandemic, really chilling, because we moved back here. This is where I originally grew up, and we had lived on the West Coast separately and together in Seattle and Portland for around 20 years-ish. On and off. Say more? I think that's it. Yeah, for now.
I am Ray, Gina's spouse, and I also go by Trans Pager. I'm an artist and I'm a graphic designer by trade. I mainly focus on trans and non-binary representation because I'm a trans masculine person. I am white and able-bodied, and I love what I do. And I'm excited to be here today and talk to you guys.
Yay. Well, I'm so excited. I'm excited. Is that where the two of you met? Did you meet in Portland, or where did you all meet?
Seattle.
We met in Seattle. I
Seattle.
dragged him to Portland after being like, I'm going to move to Portland and be single and do my own thing for a while. And then was like, no, come 2 months later. I was like, come live with me.
Yeah, I knew I had to let you just go do your thing. And
Sure did.
Well, so the two of you have a journey. You've been together for many years. And I know at some point there are moments, I mean, before kids and
We got stories we can share.
Yes, that's
We've been
what
together a long time. I mean, at this point, like we're there. I don't know a lot of long term, many decade queer relationships. But few and far between those of us who stay together 12 plus. Aren't we at 12 or 13 years now? 12 years. 2009. Whatever. Everybody at home do the math. 2009 until 2008.
Over 13.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have you be able to share that story, because I do have clients all the time asking, like, is it possible? Like, can I be in a long-term relationship? So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. And I think though that like there is something really unique about the queer long-term relationships, that it is like we don't do, being queer is like we don't do shit like everybody else. And there's like this default relationship setting. I know you two have hit on this before, but like, that says like we do this and then we do this and then it looks like this forever and ever. And I think like part of it is like circumstantially shit hit the fan many times in our relationship, but also like being queer people, we don't do it just like, like we're a custom build. Yeah. And so there, the few folks that I do know who've been together a long time, it's like there really are pronounced eras of like, I understand myself this way now, and you understand yourself this way now. And then that changed, and then that shift. There's like a lot more room for that growth in like, and you have to be able to grow side by side if you're going to do a queer relationship. I mean,
Yes.
so we have certainly dialed that in, I would say.
Hey, it's Cardinal, your favorite celestial cephalopod. As Gina said, to be in a queer relationship is to change together. Are you entering an era of understanding yourself as a non-monogamous person? Keely and Melissa are hosting an 8-week ethical non-monogamy education and support group that meets once a week starting March 29th, 2022. Learn vocabulary around different relationship styles and ways to build non-monogamous relationships. Have weekly time to process with other non-monogamous folks around challenges and opportunities from an ethical non-monogamous relationship structure. Develop communication skills and practice tools to help strengthen non-monogamous relationship connections. This group is a closed group, meaning once it starts, you can't jump in late. So go to bit.ly/ENM group to sign up today. That's bit.ly/ENM, as in ethical non-monogamy, group. All right, back to the show.
Well, what would you say a moment of growth is that the two of you would share with people?
Oh, yeah, what should we choose? Cancer survival, infertility survival, me transitioning.
Several
What do
times.
I don't know.
I mean, you have like you get to your gender transition counts in a way that because like you identify as trans. I would also say like
Yeah.
I've gone from like swinging high femme to this
Yeah.
like butch femme life that I'm living now in the
Yeah.
Midwest. And your cancer then like meant that your healthcare treatment around your gender identity options were limited for a while.
Yeah.
And so like you did a couple rounds
Yeah.
of gender transition.
Yeah, we're like round 3 or 4 now.
Yeah. Anyway, so we
Yeah.
moved across the country. We adopted a baby. We had a baby.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of different eras in the 12 years that we've been together. Yeah.
Well, why don't we hear the story about you'd already been together for a while and started the journey, the infertility adoption journey? Because I think that's something I have people ask me a lot about, of wanting to have kids and how that looks in a queer relationship, and hearing, because you're here now. I know a little bit about the listeners being able to hear it story through to where it's at now.
Yeah, it was a long arc of a journey.
Did you even think you wanted kids when we first got together?
I had like this idea of like maybe someday, but it wasn't forefront until you and I we got married, and then we both were like, oh, let's do this thing.
Because when we started dating, we were both just hooking up. This is going to be a summer fling, no strings attached, just like easy peasy, good loving, making out at bars, and then we like could not stop. But and I was like in full rejection of commitment mode because I had come out of a marriage and was like, I will never settle down. That the like having 2 kids in a house in Wisconsin was like in the vision plan.
Day we would not have believed it.
No, I would have burned it all down if anyone had told me that it was going to happen. Burned it all down. And but like I knew, I don't know, I had a thing happen. People say this thing happens. My whole young adult life, I was like, I do not want to get pregnant. I took extreme measures to avoid pregnancy many times over. And then cut to, we were settling down, and it was like, for me, there was like a switch that flipped that was like, oh, I want to do this thing with my body. I want to make a human being with this body. And I was very rooted in like, we both were, we had like a really strong, like you can envision anything kind of philosophy about what anything you envision could happen if you believe in your true vision and align your shit and whatever. And we started trying with a good friend of ours. We auditioned a few sperm donors. I laugh because can I tell the story about I'm going to tell it, whatever, you don't care. When we first were thinking about where to get our sperm.
That reaction says it all.
It's
not a good idea.
And we have like a ton of guy friends at this point. None of them create sperm in their body, like none of them. And so we were like, we got to find someone, and we don't know, we don't know anyone. So I was like, what if this was still when Craigslist had personal?
This is before
I was like,
you just did this.
no, I mentioned it to you, and then I was like, I just am going to do it as an experiment. So I posted on Craigslist personals and was like, here's what we need. Just your sperm. You're going to put it in a cup, no sex involved. This is what we need. And then we don't want to.
Ray is now taking off his glasses.
We just need this, right? And I thought, like, let's just see what sort of interest this gets. So I posted it and I went to bed. And by the time I woke up in the morning to go to work, it was like 6 hours later or whatever, I had 78 responses.
Oh my gosh.
And there was a range of like, I had just said like, tell us what you think we need to know. And I thought like that would leave it open enough to see all. And we saw all kinds of stuff. We got everything from like dick pics. Some people sent us pictures of their own children and we're like, look at the beautiful children I make. Some of them sent like detailed depictions of where they have thick body hair and where they have
My
not
goodness.
so thick body hair.
It was
Some
very
were
interesting,
very sad.
social experiment.
They were like, I think I'm never going to meet someone who will love me. They were like 22. I'm never going to meet my true love. So I guess I should do this with you. And I was like, buddy, you're 22. Anyway, so
That didn't work.
that
We
was,
didn't do
I
that.
don't recommend finding a sperm donor
No.
through Craigslist personals.
Nope.
We auditioned a couple different friends. And what some people don't, I mean, there's like lots of different ways people do it, but we auditioned a couple of friends. I took them out to dinner and we're like, hey, you're a really cool person.
Wait, do you pay for the dinner?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Because these weren't very close friends. Well, one of them was really close, but lived far away. And the other one wasn't very close to us. Because like I said, we did not know people who
many
created
sperm
sperm in their
donors,
bodies.
yeah.
We didn't know any of them. So we took this one friend of a friend out to dinner. He was really sweet. And then he was like, I like to practice sex that is not protected on a very frequent basis. And I think that I'm not ready to open you two up to being in my STI bubble. Like, I don't think that's what you would want from me. And I was like, that is a good information. And people don't talk about that as part of like the conversation that has to happen. Like now we are all now we do a little bit more with COVID, but like we're all in a little STI bubble. If I'm literally putting your unwashed sperm into my body, that's what, we don't have to touch each other for us to cross-contaminate a little bit. So then this other good friend of ours used to come down. So we were living in Portland at the time. We would pay for his train ticket. He would come down and spend the weekend with us in Portland. And he would take care of his little business in the bathroom. He was like super sweet and honored and like cried when we asked him and was like, I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. He was single. He and like a dream boat.
A good friend. Yeah.
Yeah. And he used to come down and we tried for almost a year every month with him. And we were under some legal advisement that you have to pay and have a contract with the person or you could get into legal trouble. I'm not a lawyer. I don't think your podcast is trying to do legal advice. So, but we signed a little contract with him and we paid him like a certain like nominal amounts of money and paid for his train ticket. And he would come down and then it wasn't working. And so we got a bunch of tests.
Yeah.
I got pregnant with our little twins and miscarried at Pride. And then we gave up for a minute and you got cancer, right?
Yeah, that's like a condensed
timeline. I mean, this is like 8 years of infertility. We did a lot of,
time.
there's a lot of timeline here.
Wow.
And then, yeah, we took a little break. We did try with, using.
We had it shipped to us from the Spokane place. It would show up at our doorstep, like this giant tube.
Frozen stuff.
Yeah. P.S. People who are thinking about it, you need space for the
giant box.
Like I was not prepared, tiny vial is inside this giant human-sized box at your
Is that to
doorstep.
keep it like insulated?
Yeah, there's like a big tube of
Cool.
nitrogen or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Whoa.
Yeah, you have to like unscrew the lid and like all this, steam comes out in a
Yeah.
tiny little vial, let it thaw out in your armpit, and then that didn't work. Then we tried some rounds with me with drugs, and then we were like, "Fuck this! This is super
It's not
sad, but it
gonna
is
work,
just
yeah.
not going to work." And then we were like, "Let's go down the road of trying to adopt."
Yeah.
And I had real strong biases. I did not want to foster or foster to adopt.
Uh-huh.
So then we were trying to adopt.
We went through about a year of all of the training that you need to do, and and we ended up doing simultaneously. We did the adoption training program, and we ended up doing the foster training program because it can boost your chances of getting chosen as an adoptive family if you're already doing fostering and stuff like that. So we
Yeah.
did both of those. We did like 200 hours of training within a
Yeah.
year, maybe.
So
was
much training
pretty
and
intense.
credentialing and whatever. And then we were like not getting chosen as an adoptive family.
Mhm.
And for a couple of strange reasons, but one of the things they said we could do is get some experience with kids if we really want babies. I really wanted to start a human from the beginning if possible.
Yeah.
And
We
so they were like, you should do this respite thing where you take for foster care, you can take someone home for a weekend or a week while they're between homes or their family's getting
like an
certified or whatever.
emergency situation. You
Yeah.
can sign up to.
And so we were like, okay, cool, let's do that. And then we were like, fuck everything, let's go on this. We went on a vacation because we hadn't gone on vacations in a long time because we were trying to time everything around my weird cycle.
Oh yeah.
So we took this big
The
long
big
European
vacation,
vacation and
right.
came back 4 days later. The last president, who shall not be named, was elected. And I was wandering the streets of Portland crying with all of my comrades who were also crying. And I got this phone call from our caseworker who said, there's a baby at the hospital. Do you want to go cuddle this baby? And I was like, that's the only thing I want to do. And so we entered into this really weird time where it was like, the world is ending and our dreams are coming true at the exact same time. I think that's actually when Keely and I first met. And now he's our son.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw your little cue and yeah, teeny tiny gave the coffee. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He used to come to my sex therapy all group where he would like sit in his little rocker and we would talk about people's erectile dysfunction and weird kinks. It was great. It's great.
Yeah. And then so we had him and we thought that was it. And then we're queer and we have lots of queer friends. We had a set of friends who had done IVF and they had an extra fertilized egg that they didn't know what to do with and they didn't want more children. And they reached out to us and were like, do you, is this something that you would want? And both of us looked at each other and were like,
I'll always wonder what would happen.
okay,
And trying
let's
because
try it.
we hadn't tried IVF because I have mystery and fertility. And so you do all these other tests and you pay for tests. We like whittled away all the money that anyone could have ever spent on IVF.
Yeah.
But it's much cheaper if you get an embryo donated. It is like a fraction of the price. No, we have a daughter.
That's
I know, and made a whole human with my body.
Oh my gosh.
With a lot of medical assistance.
well, and I'm like looking back on it now, I'm of course like so grateful because like we wouldn't have gone to the hospital to hold a 2-day-old baby had we gotten, Gina pregnant or before then. Like our journey was a lot. It was stressful. It was full of sorrow in a lot of places.
Grief, serious depression.
Yeah.
Serious depression. Let me be very clear about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now like we have this beautiful family. So I think like if anybody is in that place where they're just starting out, or maybe they've been trying for a long time, and it's really hard to like see the big picture when you're in the middle of it, and
Yeah.
we could not have known how this was going to turn out. But I'm, incredibly grateful for our two little magical kids and our
I'm
family.
I'm grateful and I love our family. And I want to be very clear also for the people who are listening and are like, oh, I've never heard queer people talk about their infertility struggles.
Yeah.
Let me be very clear. And you can correct me, but I think I'm right on this. Ray is not saying it's all worth it now,
No,
or like
I'm not
just
saying
hold on and it'll get
Yeah.
better or whatever. But like there are lots of options and there's lots of life on the other side with or without kids,
Yeah.
honestly. And I think
No, that's a good clarification.
Yeah.
I don't know.
because we got a lot of that along the way and it's not helpful.
It's not
It's like,
helpful.
just, try and relax and trust the process and
It's hard.
it'll all
when
work
you're
out.
in the middle of it. It's really every month is stressful. Every
Mhm.
time you try is stressful and full of like all of this emotion, that
Yeah.
you're like holding. So yeah, everybody's journey is different. Ours took a long time,
Yeah.
but yeah, here we are.
Mhm. We also moving across the country. One of the things that made it a lot easier for us was reaching out to queer parent groups and like
Mhm.
immediately getting into like play dates and
Mhm.
like new parent groups and even like now surviving a pandemic, like having online communities of queers who are either queer parents or queer families or queers that we met through infertility or whatever, like that has been saving us because I mean our youngest still can't get vaccinated. There's a lot of limitations on where we feel safe going as a family, and having queer folks that we met right away through being new parents here and the online community has like saved us
Yeah.
in so many ways. Yeah.
I've heard so many families who are pandemic, like brand new parents, and talking just about the lack of access to community and then not knowing what milestones, would maybe naturally be happening if community
Yeah.
was happening the way it was before the pandemic.
Yeah, the way that our kids are socialized. I mean, our 5.5-year-old had all these opportunities to go to like kids singing dance day on Saturday morning or whatever. Now, our 2-year-old, it is very clear she has not had that.
No.
And so when she is in public, she'll be like shouting at people through
Hello?
the mask. Like, she like loves people and wants to meet them, and she'll just be like, hi to like everybody because she doesn't have like
Like really
socialization.
like we were I've walked her through a restaurant the other day and she like shouted across the room
She got some
every
too, yeah.
person
Mhm.
in there. She's a Leo.
There you go.
Very gregarious.
Doesn't happen with our Scorpio. Shut up.
No.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us about what it's been like for the two of you as a couple through this, and like where you're at now. I mean, what I'm seeing, this is kind of this. Not that this is the end of your journey, but the final piece of this part of your journey. And you're going to this next piece. You have the kids. You're in the home life. You're doing the thing. How did you make it through it as a couple? Like so many people don't get to this point. So many people like at this point with a 2-year-old and 5.5-year-old, they're like dunzo, like divorced.
What do you say?
Okay, well, I mean, I think that, queer people do this rather naturally anyway, but I think it's important for anyone, which is like we from the get-go, we're like trying to divide up the workload of especially new parenting and not knowing what the heck we were doing. And, sleep deprivation is a real thing and drives people a little crazy. And so like we've always done this thing where we trade off nights. Like Gina will do a
We
night
prioritize.
and then I will do a night. And we now switched it to actually 2 nights on.
Oh, it's so
2
good.
nights off.
Highly recommend.
But like that way we each get sleep and can function like normal human beings. Like without sleep, it really does like your brain actually like brain science. When you don't have enough sleep, you actually stop recording short-term memory. I mean, like there are all kinds of ways that being a new parent is of tiny children is really challenging. And I think we've done a good job of like communicating with each other about like, I need to get out of the house. I need you to take the kids. And I will be back in 2 hours. You know, like we have been,
Yeah.
we've tried to just communicate
Yeah.
really with each other about like what our needs are and, you know,
Yeah.
give each other as much leeway, I think, as we can, you know, as far as like, you
I
are having
think
a
that
tough time. Why don't you go for a walk? I'll take the kids for
Yeah.
a second, you know, because it's when you're in the thick of it, it can be really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we like prioritized household management share stuff really well. And we like check in all the time about that kind of like, are you still good with this? This is how we've been handling it, but it's not feeling balanced. I feel like I'm doing not enough of this, or do you feel like you're doing too much or whatever? Like we check in a lot about like, does this still feel like it's an okay? I mean, maybe weekly. There's some version of one of us being like, are you good with this? Are you good with that? And then it doesn't have to be like a huge like overhaul of all of the systems. If we've just like, you know, in general, like, oh, we checked in about who's going to do this and okay, you're handling it and okay, fine, right?
And making sure the other thing I would add is that we've made sure to give each other and encourage each other to spend time with friends.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
Gina has this weekend coming up where she's going to go, you know, with these childhood friends that she's been friends with her whole life. Once a year, they go on a trip together, and you're all parents,
Yeah.
and you get away from your kids and away from your spouses,
2 days. It's
and you
glorious.
just get to like hang out and be with each other.
Yeah.
And you know, you encourage me to like go out for a beer with
Mhm.
my friends every now and again, and I forget. I mean, you get so busy with
Yeah.
everything that we're doing and kids and blah, blah. And so like that's also been really important, I think, is like
Mhm.
having outside relationships. And that's been hard with moving across the country and a pandemic.
And then the pandemic, like just combined. Yeah. I mean,
But
this go ahead, Gina.
Well, it's just like we're really united. Like I'm trying to think. I am now like the couples counselor in me is like thinking about the like what is it that we do that's different. So part of it is we like both take full responsibility for a functioning household. The other part is like we're united about valuing each other's self-care. Like you
Yeah.
will say, like, I don't think about like, what do I need? I think I look at like, what do we need as a unit? Oh, you haven't had any movement in a while, or have you? I don't know. I'll check with you to see if you did, because I haven't, and I'm gonna need that. Or you haven't. Have you left the house today? Have I left the house today? Like, I kind of like see it that way, and like, I see you doing it too. Of just like, hey, you had a couple real rough nights when so and so was getting up. Why don't you take this extra nap, or why don't you? You know, like I think we see our shared energy level as like a united resource instead of like an either or being adversaries about it.
At the whole system and like what's going to help make us all function.
Yeah. Shitty times when we don't see it that way because neither of us have slept.
Yeah.
And that's when we get bickery.
Yep.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think we tend to see that as like, oh, that's a signal we haven't been on a date. Somebody hasn't slept. One of us needs a sandwich.
For real.
Like,
when we start fighting, we're like, oh, it's because we haven't had an adult conversation when we're both awake in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like where we can hear each other talk.
yeah.
We need that.
Yeah, but it's not because you're a jerk or because I'm a
Right.
failure or whatever that other like kind of narrative might be. It's just like, oh, let's look at all of the other reasons, the factors going in here probably are the reason you were short with me.
I know the fights are always like about dumb stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, and we'll realize it in the middle of it usually and be like, oh, well, a dumb fight.
We don't take shit too personally either. Like even right before we got on here, I was like, "Are you trying to start a fight with me right before we hop on here?" Like, guys, like, and I think in some relationships, people would hear because there'd be like a history of like me blaming you or being whatever. That could sound like, "What's wrong with you starting a fight?"
Right.
That's just me being very direct about how I asked that kind of question, and that.
Yeah.
But like, we could very easily get into bickering fights and whatever. It just like any other couple. It's not like it's that far away. We keep it at bay by doing these other things. Does that make sense?
And you're naming it for what it is too, and recognizing the context that's creating it rather than making a lot of meaning about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. That's maybe what I'm thinking about too. Like we both accepted that we are not perfect human beings a long time ago. That ship has sailed. Nobody expects perfection around here, and that's helpful.
It is.
I love the way too that you modeled like your check-ins, because I feel like we've talked about it a lot on the podcast. I talk about it a lot in sessions, but it can feel so foreign and like it needs to be some long, formal, drawn out process, which maybe in some circumstances there does need to be a longer conversation. But just those simple, like, hey, you good with this? Like that's what it's about. It doesn't have to be this big, scary conversation. Maybe preferably so that it's just organic as to part of the way you communicate day to day.
Yeah, and I think there's just ways that we kind of will check in about tone. A lot of times, tone of voice is a thing, and that we've now figured out. It took us a while. We've gotten in dumb fights about this, but it's because somebody's like super tasky, has two kids yelling at them, and then I'll come in and like ask you a question, and you're like,
I'm like, don't fucking ask me one more question. I got 3 things
Right.
going on.
and then I'm like, are you upset with me? And then
And I'm like, no, I just want you to handle it.
we've had to
I've got
figure out.
screamers.
Yeah, we've had to figure out like taskiness doesn't necessarily mean upsetness.
Mhm.
I don't need to get personally offended, and and vice versa. Like I'll be short sometimes and not realize it.
Yeah, I was gonna say something else next, and now I can't remember. You made me think about like when I'm like so overstimulated and like my
There's a
nervous
lot.
system's like,
There's a lot of like parenting young children where it is. It's like your nervous system is shot and you're like overstimulated because there's like so many things to manage, and children usually being very loud. Our children are very loud. I don't know if everybody's children are very loud, but I feel like our house is like loud all
So
the time.
loud.
And it can be really overwhelming, and it can be hard to like operate from your frontal cortex instead of like just survival, like get through whatever's happening.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Well, and so are the two of you, and you don't have to go into detail, but like, are you still connecting? Because the other piece that I think when you're saying all of this is like, yeah, these themes of like community and working as a team. And then are the two of you getting your connection too?
I mean,
yes
Whatever
and
connection
no.
needs you.
yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes
I
and
mean,
no,
let's be very real. Like it looks entirely different. All those people who I see in my office who are like, I don't want us to forget about each other when we have kids. I'm like, it's so cute. It's so cute. It will never look like that again. It will never look like that again. It won't. You can go places with just the shit in your pockets. Like that is never gonna happen again. And that's like, and so like life is gonna change. It looks really different. And that's part of the ebb and flow and evolution of the relationship, I think.
Like
Like,
we've ended up like prioritizing time now that thank God we moved to the Midwest so that we could be near Gina's amazing family, particularly her amazing parents who really want to help us out with childcare, which has been amazing. And so like,
they like feed us.
oh my God,
So
they're fantastic. They're amazing, and that I'm incredibly lucky to have married into this family. Anyway, we have prioritized going on like a weekend date, like Chicago's not far away. We'll drive down to Chicago for an overnight and leave the kids with their parents. And even though we're not getting like necessarily day to day the connection time that I think we need and we want because we're tired usually, overwhelmed. So we've tried to prioritize taking weekends here and there, taking, a couple of days in the middle of the week when the kids can be at school, but the grandparents can take them in the overnight. And, that's just been within the last year that we've been able to start doing that. But it's been a game changer because it is like the day-to-day connection is a lot harder. It's just
Yeah.
a lot harder to make happen. But we, as long as we can get those like, a little,
I think it's like,
little,
I talk about it
I don't know.
like it's like microdosing too with
Yeah.
my clients. I refer to it that way a lot. Like there are plenty of times, like after this podcast, we have a hot tub, we're going to go, but like there are plenty of times Ray will pick up lunch for the two of us in the middle of the week. Right. And like there is a certain amount of class privilege that we now have
Yeah.
worked our asses off for in some ways, but have also just earned. But or we're given, but so that we have flexible schedules that we can like, let's go for a walk. And we have to use the kids being in childcare as like a time when we can use that. So it ends up being day dates or
Mhm.
afternoon delights or bringing each other fancy snack plates or whatever.
Mhm.
That feel like tinier moments of connection or like quick 5-minute check-in while we're both making lunch in the kitchen, but like,
You're right. It's a balance of both.
yeah,
Like having some dedicated time that's just for us, and then like the little snapshots when and where we can piece them together.
Mhm. But also I think just normalizing that we're not going to connect in the same way is huge, because if
Yeah.
it's like when either of us gets like butthurt about something, we're like, oh well, it's because we haven't really hung out in a minute, and like I can understand that, and
Yep.
like, okay, let's get it back in balance or whatever. But if either of us clung to some kind of rigid, like, oh, we have to have our connection like the same way that it did before with two human beings who were relying on us for their being alive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly.
Mhm.
It's silly.
Oh. Well, it has been such a joy talking to both of you and getting to meet you, Ray, because I've had plenty of opportunity to hang with Gina and love talking to both of you. And like maybe we'll have, I really feel like we'll have to have you on again to hear more of your story because you both are a delight to listen to.
I love doing that. I love talking about us because I always, whenever we do these, we used to do on my Instagram feed, we would do like the couples workbook that I wrote. We would like work through a section of it together on there. And it's always so nice because it is like, when you're microdosing connection in a busy life with your partner, like sitting down to talk about how great we are. It's really fun.
I love it.
I'll be
We get a lot from it too. We get a lot from it too.
Yeah, Melissa, we're always joking because Melissa's like not wanting to date right now. So like, I don't know. Part of the thing about the podcast is that I'm totally solo single in the very beginning dating era again. And Melissa's like, "Oh, I don't need to date. I'm just
I have like one partner in a different state. Like that's my comfort level right now dating. But I get so much out of listening to everyone else's stories. It fills me up.
yeah, it's almost selfish. Like, oh, there's hope. There's hope for like these great relationships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, would either of you like to start off sharing your queer joy? It doesn't have to be exactly from this week, but we always like wrap up with a queer joy.
Ours will likely always be about our children, but I took the two kids by myself to a cave, like a park this weekend, because it is cold here, y'all. It is really cold, but underground it stays warm. And so they like ran around with they both had little headlamps. They like ran around through their whole cave and like loved it. We learned new words and like I could hear them like giggling and shrieking through a million different caverns. It was amazing. So great. So queer joy in the caves.
Mhm.
Cute.
I will piggyback off of that because Gina took the kids out as an example so that I could stay home and paint. I'm a painter, but I don't always get time to do that.
Yeah.
Sick like a whole bunch this year. And so I got to spend time in my studio just painting, and it was so wonderful. And I was able to do that because I have a partner who was like, I will take the kids so you can go do the thing that you want to do. So that's my big thing. Yeah, and my appreciation.
So on this other realm, but I'm excited to say it because, so I went on a date and my partner was like, not only did I like went on a date and was very well taken care of on the date, but got to go to the Kit Kat Club has a all genders, all bodies night. And so it was just so fucking queer to be at a
Nice.
strip club. I mean, you literally remember like I almost feel like dirty, like talking about dirty, quote unquote. Like we're through this wholesome like kid stuff, and I'm like, hey, my queer joy, naked body.
Right. Yeah, no, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes. So a shout out, thank you, sir, to the person who took me out. Yeah, it was a great time. Just great, just getting out there and honestly staying up way too late. I do not normally Yes, that It was great. And then paid for it for like 2 days afterward. And that's my queer joy.
Julie, I feel like our queer joys often, like the way that you just described our dating lives, like queer joys go really similar because like yours are like fun. Like I got out and like met people and I'm like, I have cats and plants. And that's legit my queer joy again. I am celebrating the 1-year adoption anniversary of both of my kittens. They were two separate days in shelters, but this week is that week. So I'm giving them lots of extra love and attention and trying to keep them from attacking my plants, which is now the new thing at my house.
Well, and before we end today, do either of you want to? I would love for listeners to know a little bit more about Gina, your podcast, and your work. Just plug that a little bit. And Ray, you both do awesome work. So just a little snippet if people want to like reach out and contact you and get to know you more.
Yeah. Well, my website is heygina.com. And I'm Hey Gina Senna on all of the social media. But I also have a podcast called Swoon that's similar in some ways to y'all's, where there's 2 sex therapists who talk about all things love and relationship every week. So those are my big projects right now. This guy,
Yeah.
he's a famous artist. He doesn't brag enough.
Gina helped me coin the term trans painter because my name isn't, as easy to spell or pronounce. So yeah, you can find me at transpainter.com or on Instagram at transpainter, Facebook. And I, many years ago just had a realization that like I've never walked into an art museum in the portrait gallery and seen a trans person, and I was like, oh, so that's where I've dedicated my work. I focus on trans and non-binary representation, and just seeing ourselves up in a portrait gallery in an art museum is my goal. And so I've traveled all over the United States with these paintings and continue to do that. And my paintings are coming a lot slower nowadays now that we have 2 kids, but it's still happening, so it's fun.
Oh, beautiful. So beautiful. Well, thank you again for joining us today. And I definitely want to hear more of your stories. We'll have to bring you back on. And
I'm too.
listeners, thanks everyone for joining us today. And I hope all of you have a queer, joyful week.
Thanks for listening to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy, a podcast by the Connective Therapy Collective, hosted by Keely C. Helmick and Melissa DeSegurant, with audio edited and produced by me, Cardinal Marking. Intro music is by Bad Snacks. This week's guests were Gina and Ray Senarigi. Find Gina at Hey Gina Senna on Instagram and Ray at Transpainter on Instagram. Links are in the show notes. If this episode made you smile or think, tell us about it. If you hated it, tell us about that. Review us on iTunes or Spotify, or send us an email at info@connectivetherapycollective.com. For more queer joy, visit our website at www.connectivetherapycollective.com. Love ya. Bye.